So, what do you guys want to...
It doesn't matter what you think!
You smell what The Rock is cooking?
You there, sitting at home, acknowledge me.
Know your role and shut your mouth.
Yo, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is I, the microphone messiah, Phillip Antoine. Another episode of So What Do You Want to Talk About? Not joined by the usual prospects. We are joined by the longest reigning UGWA champion of all time, a man who championed over the Underground for 560 days, loved it so much he ran it back a second time for 255 days. The Battle King, the future of Dave Dutra. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, quite the introduction as usual. You never fail with those introductions. And funny little side note, when the UGWA, prior to them, if you want to call it legitimizing, but when they were just strictly like a backyard fed, I held the UGWA title then too. But I've spoken to Trevino. He says he's reclassified that title, so I can't be called a three-time UGWA champion, even though that was the only UGWA championship at that time. But yeah,
It's okay.
we'll go.
Gone under some rebranding. It's fine. It's fine.
The belt got rebranded, so my title reigns went down to 2. It used to be whatever. I gave him a hard time about it.
It's okay. It's like Ric Flair is like a 22 time, but we say 16. You know,
So it says, yeah.
It is what it is. But Dave, thank you for coming on, man. Normally you're an interview guest, and we thought we'd do something a little different here.
Yeah.
This spawns from a tweet you put out about the Bloodline story being the greatest story ever told, which I mean it is. I think there's recency bias, obviously, because it's still happening as we're going along. But I mean, we're gonna get into that in this show. But so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is some recency bias. Obviously, I think anytime someone says it's the greatest ever and they just saw it or it's in the middle of, that's going to happen. But if you look at everything, and I've been a wrestling fan for 35 years, so it's sort of one of those things where I think I have a good chunk of time I can reflect back on, and I don't think anything's come close to this. But we'll get more into that.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm not going to ask the question. We know what we're going to talk about. This is about the Bloodline story. Let's start it off. Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns had taken a hiatus during the start of the pandemic, for his health. He had battled leukemia and things like that. So he was supposed to wrestle Goldberg at WrestleMania 36. That didn't happen. I think Goldberg ended up wrestling Braun Strowman. Yeah. So Roman's gone for months, and then August 2022 shows up after the Fiend and Braun Strowman battle for the Universal title, attacks both men. And then the following SmackDown, Adam Pearce is talking to Roman Reigns, getting him to sign the contract or wanting him to sign the contract. And then it pans, and it's a slow pan. I think everybody remembers where they were when this happened. Roman Reigns is sitting next to none other than Paul Heyman. And you're just like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
This is completely different. The game has completely changed in just the short span of 10 seconds, So, I mean, do you remember where you were when that happened, and what were your initial thoughts?
I don't know where I was when that happened, but I will say that Roman at that time was in such a dire need for a heel turn, like a full-fledged heel turn. I think Roman, up until that point, had been force-fed for so long. He was sort of falling into that lull that Cena was in a decade earlier, where he was being pushed hard as the top baby for an extended period of time, and almost to the point of overexposure, to where people felt that it was being forced. And you had a good maybe you had the kids that were cheering for Roman just like they were for Cena.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always said this because I kind of like, especially during that era when WWE would come around here, I'd go to the shows and I'd watch. He was getting the yeah boo, like the song would hit you, they'd be like, oh yeah, wait, oh, and we're not supposed to like him, boo. Like you could see the reactions and things like that. So I mean,
yeah, he was getting. I mean, it was mixed, right? He wasn't getting like a ton of heat by any means, unless he was in like Chicago or one of those really smart crowds. But
I was gonna say Payback 2017 in San Jose, like that was straight heat.
Yeah, and then I'm sure there's plenty of different times where he did, right? But my point is that I think they were a bit cuffed creatively by
Yes.
keeping him as a baby face, and it showed. It was just one after another, and I think even Roman makes fun of like the suffer and succotash line they gave him,
Yeah.
things like that, where it just felt so forced, so childish, and you just know he could do more, he could do better. And so when we talk about Paul Heyman getting involved, to me that was like the injection that Roman needed to be fresh again. And do, we obviously, I did not know it would lead to where it is now, but at that time, that's when I was like, okay, finally, like we had a subset of fans that were booing him. Let's give real reason, legitimate reason to boo him now, and let's have something different, and let's see how he could. And it was great because obviously we'll fast forward a little bit, but I just mentioned this to someone online today. Someone had posted on Facebook today about Roman's reign over this bloodline feud and how it has made him possibly like the best performer wrestler of his generation, which could be a stretch by some people. That's debatable, but what I will say is, as a heel, giving him the Brock schedule and protecting him that way to where he's not on every week. He's not wrestling every week for sure. He may not be wrestling every month,
Yeah.
but giving him that ultra part-time schedule brings a little bit of allure to him, and it protects him and makes him feel special and makes him feel like an attraction. And I think that in itself has a lot to do with why this story has been as fresh and exciting and intriguing for the length of the time. It's hard to keep something going in today's wrestling world where there's weekly television, 5, 6+ hours every week of content, to keep it fresh for 3 years.
No, I mean,
It's
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we all people would have gotten bored of it. I mean, there are people that will complain about that, but I mean, like it's worked. Like when they announce he's going to be there, ticket sales go up, and that what did Michael Cole say? 11 straight sellouts. Like it's been, and he's been there for what 5 or 6 of them. So it's been something special to watch. But just kind of dialing it back. So he's there with Heyman, and then the next week is the Payback pay-per-view. Strowman and the Fiend are going at it. We've never seen anybody sign a contract to be in a match at like midway to the ring, but if that happens, Roman wins the Universal title, and here we are, 1,300 some days later on this incredible run. Yeah, man. I mean, as we look at it, I mean, just look at the evolution of Roman's character. So this really first started. He was doing it for his family. Like that's was kind of his thing. He was telling Jay, like, I'm doing this for our family, for our bloodline, so that we keep our place at the head of this business. And obviously, we know the Anoa'i Samoan dynasty is a special breed. You've been in the ring with some, so I mean, it's absolutely special. But that's kind of where Roman's character started, and then it kind of pivoted. Like I remember during the KO storyline during the Thunderdome era, where he's no longer just doing it for his family; he's doing it for the company. Like me being on top allows you to be here; it allows you to work.
yeah,
I'm putting food on the table for your family. I'm putting a roof over your family's head, and then it evolved. Him being the head of the table allows all of us to watch the program, allows the company to still be in business. So
yeah.
it was those story beats that hit, and I think people really forgot about those. It was just this evolution over a few months to a year to where okay, we're gonna get there, and then it's really just kind of stayed at he allows us to watch the programming. What are your thoughts on those kind of story beats and the evolution of that?
Um, and did you mention at all in there that, and you might have a timeline in front of you to sort of break down, because I remember at least the early part of this in that he started feuding with Jay, or
Yeah,
was it Jimmy? It was Jay. Like,
it was Jay. Yeah, there was
and
a
it's almost like he beat him down into submission to have him sort of follow him.
yes.
Um, I thought, was that in the 2020, 2021? Was that still the Thunderdome era?
Yeah, they had their
Okay.
like Jay won a number one contendership. Then
Yeah.
then Roman beat him, and then it led to the Hell in the Cell where Roman
Yes.
choked out Jimmy while he was still injured, and Roman's crying and Jay's crying, and it was just that's where this real like unbelievable acting started.
So I never thought about it when I was doing the things that I did in the UGWA with Battle Kingdom, but it parallels that completely. And maybe it was a subconscious thing because this happened right around the same time. But the way I looked at it is it was so interesting to see him, with his family who didn't see eye to eye with him and beat them so badly that they felt like they needed to follow the alpha. They weren't as good as him. So it's like beat him into submission to the point where they now see him as the alpha, see him as the leader, and then follow him and do whatever he says. And he did that with both of them, I think. Did he do it
Well,
with Jimmy?
Jimmy just kind of fell in line because he saw what happened to his brother.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it does parallel. Like you did that with Jordan Cruz, Adriel Knox.
And Noctis, and it was sort of a similar idea, but no, I mean, I thought all that was intriguing stuff. It was great to see, and it obviously plays even more so as we get later on because once I think maybe maybe a year later, that's when they introduce Solo, and then
Yes,
they bring in Sammy, and Sammy tries to get involved, and then eventually that leads into Jay and the Jay Sammy bit, and then it sort of does full circle turn, and then it goes back to Jay and Roman again, right? Maybe about a year and a half after that.
yeah. So they kind of revisited what like 3 years later at they main evented another SummerSlam together. Yeah, it was great, man. And as the story goes on, Jay's there. He's the right hand man. Then it elevates him to become main event Jay Uso. Uh, which probably winning the Andre Battle Royal probably did the most for him because it kind of elevated him to the spot that he is now. And I mean, the story just got so hot, like you said. Solo came in and Sammy, and
And,
I mean,
it built everybody because after, I mean, when Jay was working with Roman on the first go around during the Thunderdome era, it made it made believers out of the fans in like, okay, Jay's not just a tag team wrestler. Like Jay can go heads up with anybody, right? He's got grit, man. He stood toe to toe with Roman, and sure, he didn't come out on top, but I now am more of a believer in Jay Uso. And then it wasn't. Not only did it elevate him on that tier system, but the Usos themselves, I think, at that point, if they weren't already champions, um, they won the titles at some point in that same era. So, because I think the entire Bloodline had belts
yeah,
for a good stretch.
they took him off of Ray and Dom,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
SmackDown ones, and then obviously they take the Raw ones off of RK Bro. But yeah, man, I mean WWE was just started selling out. Obviously once they come back to full capacity crowds from the pandemic, and it was just hot, man. I mean, you saw those Bloodline shirts. They were popular, like NWO, Austin 316 DX shirts. Ones were all in the air. I mean, did you get to see Roman at all? Have you seen him at all live during this
So
run?
I did, and I was going to bring that up too. So he was very selective with house shows.
Yes.
So Roman worked probably as many house shows as he did pay-per-views in a calendar year. He may have did anywhere from 6 to 8 house shows total. I think they always have him do MSG. That's a big one, right? Maybe Chicago. He actually did Sacramento.
Yes.
So I think it was 2022, late 2022. I'm not sure on the date, but I have a video I took when I was at that show because I did go to it, and it was the largest house show draw I had personally ever been to in my life.
Okay.
And Roman, I think they sold 8,800 tickets at
Gee.
Golden One Center. So the entire lower bowl of Golden One was sold out, and then the center sections of the upper deck had, it was spotty on each side. and there was a little bit on the lower rim of the upper bowl all the way around filled too. So,
Okay.
that building seats like 16,000, but to have more than half the building sold out for a house show, it was like a Sunday show too. So it was like a Sunday night show. It's a school night for kids, and you fill out nearly 9,000 seats for a house show because Roman was on it, and people knew that he didn't really do a lot of shows. So if you get a chance to see Roman wrestle, it's a big deal. And he wrestled like for 20, I think it was like a 24-minute match against Drew McIntyre. And then
Okay.
he actually got on the mic, and I do have this somewhere on my phone. And cut like a little 10-minute promo afterwards, thanking the fans, it's just sort of out of kayfabe, and saying, hey, I don't do these shows very often. I try to spend a lot of time with my family these days. But it's nice to see that when I do them, all you come out and support me and blah blah blah. Whether you boo me, you cheer me. So it was a cool little promo, but that was just my way of saying that business certainly took an upswing because I've been to plenty of house shows,
Yes.
and it's very rare to get nearly 9,000 seats sold for any house show event that I've been a part of. Even in the Attitude Era, I don't remember seeing draws like that. So
Wow, that's something, man. Yeah, I mean, the one time I've seen Roman live wrestling was it was a San Jose SmackDown. This was like when Edge and Rollins were having their feud, and Edge like made a surprise appearance. Roman wrestled a 6-man tag, like not even in gear, in a t-shirt and his joggers and Jordans.
oh.
That dark match, it was him and the Usos. He literally got tagged in, Superman punch spear. But yeah,
But you haven't been to any WWE shows in that time where he just wasn't around.
he just wasn't around. Like I went to what last year, they had that loop. They did the SmackDown and Sack completely sold out. I mean, the dark match was what Cena and Dom. That SmackDown and
Yeah,
Sack
yeah.
was hot, and then I hit the house show that was at the Chase Center. That was sold out, and then I hit that Raw. But
In
yeah,
San Jose.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go to the one this year, but yeah, no, like he just wasn't on those. So I think the last time I saw Roman, I went to the Raw after Mania last year, and like he didn't even. I mean, he was dressed, but he didn't do anything because Brock attacked Cody. But yeah, that's the last
Okay,
time I,
okay.
I saw Roman in person, and
You
man,
just have to fly yourself to a pay-per-view. That's what you have to
I
do.
I will be in
Respect.
Philad I will be in Philadelphia. I'll be at night two.
Oh, okay. You're not going night one?
Uh, trying to work something out. Trying to work something out.
I'm going to both nights. So
Okay.
I got actually one of my longtime best friends. We're all sort of turning 40 this year. So his birthday is coming up. So me and another buddy of mine, we pitched in and actually bought WrestleMania tickets for the three of us.
There you
And
go.
it's like we surprised him, and he now knows obviously because he's flying out there for it. But yeah, like we're all going for that reason. So we're pretty pumped about it. It'll be the first time, like last year at WrestleMania, I did go to night one in LA, but
Okay.
I was there also to try to get bookings and work and stuff.
Yeah.
So this time around, I'm just gonna go and just enjoy myself. So doing some touristy stuff, and on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, and go enjoy the show. And hopefully, if things play out the way I think they'll play out, and I don't always say this, so please don't take this like, oh yeah, everyone says that. I really truly think this WrestleMania has a chance to be like one of the greatest ever, like top 3 WrestleManias of all time. And I don't say that lightly. I rarely do say that at all. But I think this one does have the potential.
Absolutely, man. Kind of getting off on a side note. I mean, like before it really started to form. Like when we were in like December, I was on the show and I was talking about all right, like Punk's back. So Jade Cargill signed. There's mention of Rock and Roman. Like I was just going through these. Like this could be the
Oh,
greatest WrestleMania of all time.
and now
And I mean,
the rumor mill's spinning too. Have you seen all the rumors about Austin and Cena?
well, yeah, because of the truck that was shown on Raw.
Yeah,
We're gonna talk about that segment too. But just getting back to the sellouts, I mean, it's special, man. And that entrance, man, like sometimes I go back and watch like when it's Roman, it's the Usos. They have all the time
the goosebumps.
the goosebumps.
It's
Solo's
great.
there, Sammy's there vibing, Heyman's there. Like it's just like it's such a it's such an attraction in itself, that entrance. And when Samantha Irvin would be the one to announce them, it all just it was
And when they all
perfect.
had championships
Yeah.
and they do that really low close-up shot and show all of them slowly raise up all the gold together. And
Yes.
with and Heyman's like holding one of Roman's two belts in his hand, or he's doing the pray, and
Yes.
it's like it's I mean that but that's WWE production. Like they know exactly what they're doing, and they know that an entrance is as or if sometimes more important than what's in the ring. It's all about the production and the movie making. That's what they do, is they make movies, right? So that
Yes.
doing those entrances is so special. And like another little detail about Roman that I love is that he only wears the necklace and looks like a warrior when he goes to battle. He never dresses that way for all the TV shows.
Oh no,
He's wearing like sweatpants and a hoodie, and you know Heyman's carrying all of his gear, whatever, his belts, and to me that makes the match so much more special. His entrance is still great even in the hoodie, but then when it's game time, it's going to battle, and he comes out looking like that, which you only see him wrestle and look like that maybe 4 times a year. It
yeah,
means so much more.
yeah, man. I mean, and like he's really become just a great attraction. I mean, I've kind of told people like Roman's schedule is kind of, and he's wrestled even less and less as time has gone on. It's kind of like, like how many times does a boxer or a UFC fighter defend their title? What, maybe 3 times a year, if that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it's at. But let's talk about greatest story ever told. I mean, you put out the tweet letting people know like a Bloodline story's greatest story ever told. I know I kind of jumped in and said Kane and Undertaker. I didn't mean it as the greatest story. Because you just kind of go down the rabbit hole. Like, all right, what do people think are the greatest stories ever told?
Yeah.
Obviously, Hogan and Savage, the mega powers coming together and exploding. I've seen people even make arguments for like Andre, turning heel and joining Heenan, and then the stuff with Hogan at 3. And I mean, Kane and Undertaker for, Undertaker not wanting to fight his baby brother, thinking he was dead and all that other stuff. And then it all comes full circle to where they finally go after each other at WrestleMania 14, and just how epic of a match that was. So that's what I meant. By
Yeah.
one of the greatest stories ever told. But man, I mean, cinema is the term that's being used to describe this like crazy. I like the term Master Oos Theater. That's one I like. But it's just it's been awesome to watch, man. I mean, just the like the acting chops. Like Roman's definitely going off to Hollywood once this is all over.
He better.
I
Like
mean, just the
he
ability to
better.
cry like that, and just like the way he can just evoke emotion. I mean,
Yeah.
it everything has been great, man. The twists and the turns, and you know, uh, Jay and the whole Jay and Sammy of it all.
Yeah.
That was like really the height of this story, and like Jay not trusting him, and then he finally like after they win War Games, which that War Games was so good. Roman sitting in the chamber in the chair like a war general directing. All right, now you go out. And
Yeah.
that was all great. But what were your thoughts of the Jay and Sammy of it all?
To me, that's when I felt like the story became the best story. My personal favorite story WWE has ever told was the Mega Power story. And it's not to, because I know a lot of people always say Austin and McMahon. That was a rivalry, that was a feud, but it wasn't like I guess it was an overarching story, but I don't think it was ever done in a way to have like a nice beginning and end. I think it was more of, and I mentioned this to you before, it was like Crash TV. It was just like, okay, we found something that works. Let's, you know, hammer it and let's squeeze the orange until it runs dry every week. And how can we Austin raise hell and screw over McMahon? And it was just a over and over and over, and it worked for a long time, and it made a shit ton of money. But I feel like if you try to be honest with yourself and look back at that, the story itself was very one dimensional. It was employee hates the boss, boss hates the employee. They try to fuck each other over every week. Employee almost always comes out on top. A new, hurdle comes an employee's way. How does he overcome it? But it's just rinse, wash, repeat. The mega powers, what I liked about that one is that there was the factor of Miss Elizabeth. So there's a love story, there's jealousy, there's rage, there's justice being served.
Yeah.
And they did that at a time where they didn't have weekly TV, like weekly live TV.
Yeah.
It was a different era, and for them to carry that story for about a year and a half, because
Yeah.
that was a long one. They started that out with them forming together, Hogan helping Macho win the title at 4, and then circling all the way back to 5. And they carried it a little further into SummerSlam that following year with Zeus and whatnot. So, but they stretched it for a long period of time and were able to tell a cohesive story. And then there's obviously, I mean, I won't go too much, but there was more to that story, and I felt like it. It at that time, by the way, WrestleMania 5 had the record for pay-per-view sales or pay-per-view buys. And that record was not beat until I believe WrestleMania 17. So the power of that story, it's Hogan, obviously. Hogan's Hogan. So Hogan's going to draw a pay-per-view buy no matter what. But I have to believe that WrestleMania 5 specifically had a pay-per-view buy record all the way for 12 plus years after the fact because of the story that built that show. So I always felt like that was their strongest story ever told. But then circling all back to what you asked me about Sammy and Jay, that clip went viral like I've never seen, with them breaking character because they couldn't hold their laughter in. And to me, that was a sign of the talent thinking they're just having the time of their life. And when you can see the talent, and when you can see through and see that they are just having like the best time and they love what they're doing, to me, it tells you that like what they're doing is generating gold. And to have Sammy involved, who's such like it really didn't make any sense why he would want to be Bloodline, right? It was so over the top and crazy. But it's comedy, and what hasn't been a comedy story. So to put that in there, it throws another layer of paint in the story. Okay, now there's a comedic mix in there, and then you have the back and forth, and then he makes the Usi comment, right? Jay, excuse Jay. Oh, and the acting too. I got to backtrack a little bit. When Jay, I think I got to remind exactly which line came first, but Jay basically had said, I don't give a damn um, what Roman says or what the tribal chief say. I don't give a damn what the tribal chief thinks. And then they zoom in on Roman's face, and Roman had his head down, and he just looked up. And that the way they shot it, the way they did the camera zoom, Roman's reaction, and the fans who they all bought it, and it was like, oh, like that kind of stuff. You didn't get that with Austin McMahon. You
No.
barely got that with I mean, you didn't really get it with Hogan and Savage, or Undertaker and Kane. That just natural emotion that the fans felt, and you heard it through the arena. The mics that pick up in the arena. All that stuff, you don't see that very often these days. So it was a great watch, it's a great ride, and then to see the after effects of Sammy like breaks the ice, and he just hasn't been feeling real oozy, and then you see like Jay covering his mouth trying to not break character, and Jimmy I think was sort of allowed to break character because Jimmy was always like pulling for Sammy initially, right?
Yeah.
And you could just tell they were having so much fun, and thus as a viewer you're having a lot of fun. And once that happened, and that I swear I saw that on my feed, that clip, for like 3 or 4 weeks straight,
Yeah,
people
like
talking about it.
I think even Solo broke, and that's how you knew like this was
Yeah,
something special. Yeah, I mean, just the twists and turns, man, with everything they've done, and like I listen to Sam Roberts, and he has a rule on his show: everything counts. And so, like, whenever I'm watching like a Bloodline segment, I'm kind of watching for something and be like, okay, maybe that's gonna play off in like a month or two, just kind of like little things like that, and like what you said when Roman looked up, like it played out to the falling out.
Yeah.
But the Sami Zayn getting kicked out, trying to help his boy KO, and I mean, just like to end the Royal Rumble, one of the big 4 or 5 pay-per-views, because we have Money in the Bank now, with a segment and not a match or the Rumble, that spoke volumes. That's and for Sammy to turn on Roman the way he did, the way like when Seth killed the Shield that night, like oh, okay, we're paying, we're rewarding the loyal viewer. Like I loved things like that.
Add
And
that to the checklist of why this is the greatest story ever. How many stories can you say ended a Royal Rumble instead of the winner of the Rumble? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, who does that and how? And here's the other thing, too. It's like, I think as viewers, we all have our ideas of where we want to see the story go. And I think the vast majority of people who have followed this can admit at least one point in this arc that they were proven wrong. That they said, why did they do that? And then later on, they're like, this story's even greater now. I guess I should shut my mouth. I I walked out of WrestleMania 39 last year, and I'm like, God damn, I think this could have been the best WrestleMania ever, but they fucking jobbed Cody. Like, why would they have? He was on a roll. It was like the perfect ending. Like, why did they not do that? And I'm being proven wrong. I did say, and I will say this, I did say the only way they could make up for WrestleMania 39's what I thought was a bad booking call is if they actually pay it off at 40. And if they could somehow, some way carry it for an entire other year, I don't know how they're going to do it, but if they could do that, then I will be okay with what they did at 39. And that might happen now. So I'm eating crow. But I think there's a lot of people that I've spoken to a few wrestlers in locker rooms during the Sami Zayn story where he was going into his hometown to challenge Roman and possibly win the championship, and so many people believed it. And a lot of wrestlers that are in the locker rooms in NorCal were saying you have to maximize on moments. WWE is all about the moment. You're never going to get this moment again. You're never going to have a situation that you have right now with Sammy as hot as he is going just by happenstance. It's not like they booked the town for Sammy. They just happened to be on that road right in Montreal, hometown boy. Like imagine the visual, the camera visual they get of him winning in his hometown and how bananas that crowd would be, right? You can't miss that moment. Like you have to pay that off. And that was the logic they were using when they were telling me Sammy has to go over. They can give the belt back to Roman and he could still go on to Mania, even if they have Sammy lose the next night on Raw. But they have to get that moment in. And they put up a case. I'm like, yeah, sort of makes sense. And then they didn't do it. So I'm sure those wrestlers won't name names. They're looking at it now, and I'm sure a lot of them are probably like, you know what, it was for the best. It was for the best because they're also selling this story now of him breaking records. Right, Roman is getting close to the Hogan and the San Martinos and all that stuff, and can
yeah.
extend it. So
Yeah, well, actually, because of the 2 night formula, night 2, Roman Reigns will have the most WrestleMania main events at 9. On night 1, he'll tie Hogan at 8, and then night 2, he'll
oh wow, I didn't know that one.
yeah. So
Okay,
a Hogan
okay.
record is being broken. And the obvious thing to see if he'll break the title record, but we're gonna get to that. Continuing, just kind of with the cinema of it all. I mean, when the Usos turned on him. I mean that was something special. I mean, and Roman has this gotten this ability to just kind of not just tell a story with his body in the ring, but when the way he talks trash to his opponents and just the way like when the camera picks up some of Roman's best promos are like the off the mic ones when he's like walking to the back and he's talking to the camera, or he's like beating up his opponent and he's talking ish. Like it's just fantastic stuff, man. But yeah, what were your thoughts when Jimmy super kicked Roman?
I thought that was what they needed to do. I think for a long time, like Jimmy had been sort of the afterthought of the entire group. It had been focused on Jay so much, and then Sammy got involved. Obviously, there's Roman, and even like Solo seemingly felt like he had a bigger stake in it for a while because he was sort of being Roman's right hand guy for run-ins. He was the new guy there, and I felt like they were making him look super strong. He had an undefeated streak, so I think they needed to do something with Jimmy, and that was like the perfect thing to do at that time.
Yeah,
Cause some conflict, make you think that the bloodline might disband at that point. But then obviously we know now it didn't do that.
yeah. I mean, and credit to Jay for always being conflicted. He was conflicted about Sammy joining, and then he was conflicted about turning his back on him after Sammy turned his back on Roman, and and then being conflicted with Jimmy turning on Roman and Jimmy being like, I'm your brother, not him. Just all that was great, and it led to Money in the Bank London, where Jay pinned Roman. And I did not like this at the time because I felt that whoever beats Roman gets the rub of all rubs. Because I'm big on an energy transfer within wrestling. Like you pin Roman Reigns, you win that title, you beat the guy who ended the streak. Because
Yeah.
Brock absorbed all that energy from ending the Undertaker streak. Roman got the rub from being the first guy to really pin Brock when he was on that reign of terror at the 2018 SummerSlam. And then Roman, a couple years later, used that energy to form the Tribal Chief character. And then so whoever beats him, gets that energy. It's just like it's a really
But
meta
it,
way
it
of
was a tag. It was a tag though. It was a
yeah. No,
tag.
it was a tag, and just like I mean that a little bit of that energy transfer helped Jay to get to where he is now and main event Jey Uso and all this other stuff. But yeah, man, I mean, it was a shock. They did it, and man, Roman on the outside just like having a meltdown from being pinned. I thought that was
Yeah. I think they had to do that to sell SummerSlam, right? They had to make Jay a legit contender, and pinning him in a tag match, it's easy for a heel to attest the loss to so many other variables. So it's not like a clean loss, but they had to do it. And since then, look what it has done for Jay. Jay does. I mean, I know the tagline is main event Jey Uso, but he has main evented a lot of shows, and he's viewed upon now as a legit top guy. Along with, they have a really deep, actually, main event roster right now. If you look at both Raw and SmackDown, and I buy Jay in a main event. I mean, I don't know how everyone feels, but I think that helped him quite a bit.
absolutely. And then I have on here their ability to pivot, obviously with the current storyline now. Cody won the Rumble. He was giving up his spot to The Rock. We get to the press conference in Vegas. Roman selects The Rock to fight at Mania. Then it gets to this whole kind of thing where we are, and The Rock turns heel, which in a podcast or an interview he said years ago he could never turn heel. And here we are. I mean, he did probably the most heelish thing we've seen on television in quite some time.
Yeah,
Like the other day. So
yeah.
I mean, it's an unbelievable story, man. Just the twists and the turns and all the little subtle things that have happened, man. And
Well, there's so many pieces to the puzzle now. There's so many characters involved in the story, and I think it's easy to pivot when you have that many cards that you can play. Cody has been the established top guy of the company, the regular top guy,
yes,
like the guy who's always there, right? Not the part-time guy, the guy who's carrying the company on its back on the house show loops and all that. So you have to figure out a way to keep him relevant. I don't know for certain whether or not this was all part of the master plan, or it seems more like they were just going to pivot hard and do Rock and Roman until they got some backlash. And if the company was wise enough this time to listen to it, as opposed to usually the the Vince thing to do would be to just do whatever they wanted to do on paper, and the fans will, eat whatever they serve, kind of thing. So I think they made the best move possible, because the long term damage it would do to Cody for a top baby face to win the Royal Rumble and then just give away his WrestleMania opportunity. That made Cody look like a punk.
Yeah.
It made him look like a chump, and no one's gonna want to cheer for the top guy when he looks like a chump on TV. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I'll just give I can win it on any day. So here's WrestleMania. No one would do that. That wouldn't happen. Funny story is that happened on an APW show, way back during the Gym Wars garage days.
Yes.
It booked they it was booked. You remember Jody Christopherson?
Yes. War
He
Pig.
was yes, he was essentially booked in the same exact situation where he won a battle royal and everyone was all behind him, and he was, the way it was booked, he said, I'm not ready to challenge the champion at the time was a guy named Derek Sanders.
Okay.
He's like, I'm not ready to challenge Derek Sanders, so I'm going to give my spot to Dylan Drake. And
Golden Boy.
yes, the Golden Boy. So he was the top baby face at that time. So I'm like, and a lot of the guys in the back had criticized the move because like it made Jody look like a total chump. And we were like, why would he have entered into this battle royal for number one contendership if his plan when he won it was to give it to it? Just, I don't know. And that's why I felt like that's what they were doing with Cody. Is like they were just making him look like a chump, and you don't want to do that long term for the health of your business, your top guy. So you could always do Rock and Roman pending on Rock's schedule. And to me, you circle back to 41. And
Yeah.
because I don't think the story's over. Cody's story might start or pivot somewhere else if he wins. But the Bloodline story isn't over. It's not
Oh,
over, at least until you do Roman and Rock, which
absolutely.
they can stretch that for another year. That's no problem. That's just more money.
Yeah. Uh, and what I've loved about Roman's character is like they add real life things. He talks about like $1 billion business, highest grossing WrestleMania of all time.
Yeah.
Netflix wanting Raw for $5 billion. Roman's like, well, I'm the champ. I'm the cause of all this. You're welcome. And he tells Cody like, you can never do that. Just little things like that, which I love. Like add the real life elements in there. But man, I
And
have
then,
on. No, keep going.
oh, I was going to say, because we're talking now about from the addition of The Rock. So basically, like the 2024 to now. And one thing that's, with Kevin Dunn no longer working with the company, I think anyone who's been watching the product can clearly see that there's a different tone of
Yes.
how the show is shot. Very sports oriented. They usually show a wide shot of the city they're in to start the show, and then the building. They've highly emphasized that. They show the talent walking from their cars with their bags coming into the building, so it feels more like just like the NFL shows people getting out of the team, team tour bus to get onto the
Yes.
building, whatever it might be, right? So it just feels different. But then whoever's in charge of this production, as well as I guess you attested to Triple H and his creative, there are so many subtle details that they're doing, and it could be done intentionally or not. It could be done to just make people speculate with no payoff, or it could be, but there are a lot of Easter eggs they have planted in the last 3 months that have made people like us come on this to talk about it. And, armchair quarterback, what could they possibly be doing?
That's where it goes back to everything counts.
Yes.
That's where it
And
goes back to that.
so I'm sure you've probably heard of everything I'm about to name off. If you haven't, well, then I guess I'm telling you. But like, so have you noticed? And I'm sure people that Rock has always pointed like this, not like this.
Yeah. So Roman was on Pat McAfee's show, and Pat McAfee brought that up, like, "Hey, what's up with this?"
Yeah,
And people were like, "Well, maybe he just didn't realize his thumb was out," or people were like, "Oh, it's a gun signal, like you're going down, Roman," and all those things.
yeah.
There's a shot of like Heyman looking like, "Why? Why is it like that?" Just looking confused. Stuff like that's great.
Yeah. That's the other thing too, is like you maybe it wasn't intentional, but why is it coincidentally that that wide shot, because Rock was on the far left of your screen and on the far right was Heyman, and he was like looking over at Rock with this look of concern, right? And then I think I don't know if it was, I think Rollins made a reference and pointed like that. So I think I don't know if they were aware that that was intentional, or if they saw fans react to it online and said, "Hey, this is like the buzz online. Let's play off the buzz." But I mean, and then we talk about that. We mentioned it earlier. The truck.
Yes.
Every truck on the road to WrestleMania at their live events usually have WrestleMania graphics, because it's the road to WrestleMania. They're promoting the hell out of the show. So the WrestleMania trucks for the last, month or two. Why they would have a truck with two talents that aren't even with the company currently, right? Austin and Rock, especially if it wasn't a WrestleMania one. It could be a complete coincidence, but that seems very intentionally planted. And it could be planted just to tease people with
Yeah.
no, they may not actually use them at all. But even if they were doing it for that reason, I think it's brilliant because it creates this sense of intrigue, and it makes people want to tune in to see, are they really going to have them there? Yes or no? It was like, I used to watch a show called Lost. Did you ever watch that show?
I'm familiar with it.
Lost was like a show that every episode was a cliffhanger. They introduced so many plot like twists and turns, and introduced so many like question marks and things that quite honestly didn't pay them all off, right? But they did so much of that on every episode that as a fan watching it, people would go on message boards and people would talk, and they would be like just speculating every week what's going to happen next. I don't know. And I think WWE is doing a lot of that with this Bloodline feud as of now, to where they're putting so much stuff in there, people in the backgrounds of promo shots backstage that maybe they're just there to be there, but it seems sort of intentional. What could that person be doing? Why is Drew McIntyre in the background talking to Paul Heyman
Yes.
in a far enough away to where it could just be coincidence, but maybe not? And I don't know. I think it's like the best, most creative storytelling they've ever done. And I can't confidently say I know how the full match is going to play out. And normally, if you take any WrestleMania from 5 years ago and then go back 15 years, so like I'm talking 2005 through 2020, I think it was much easier to figure out where they were going. And right now, I don't know. And as a viewer, that's the best case scenario, because you're always, begging to know where they're going, and you have to watch. So
Absolutely. Uh, uh, Everybody's gotten bigger from this whole bloodline story. Roman is finally in the position where Vince wanted him all those years ago, biggest star in the industry. Like I talk to non-wrestling fans. They don't watch wrestling, but they know who Roman Reigns is. That's a testament to the story and how big of a star he's become. Jay, I mean, main event Jay Uso. We've been talking about it. I was actually a candidate for him to. I wanted him to dethrone Gunther because I was like, all right, he pinned a guy that hasn't been pinned in what 4 years. So why not end Gunther's run? That was just me. Jimmy, with Jay leaving the bloodline and Jimmy, being back in, he's kind of taken a step up as a henchman. Heyman, like we already knew Paul Heyman was a Hall of Famer. He's going in this year. This kind of solidified it. Like, yeah, he's great at this. Solo, the undefeated streak, the menacing being the enforcer of the bloodline. That really helped him out a lot, being just by Roman and everything. The Rock, I mean, Rock, the most famous person on the planet, has, I mean, the final boss character. I mean, what we saw on Monday with him just dismantling Cody Rhodes, making him bleed, just the viciousness, because it needed that, and I didn't, honestly,
it,
that's some of the best acting Rock has ever done.
in the rain, bro,
Yeah,
in the fucking rain,
in
how
Chicago.
how lucky, but I mean, to have it be raining, rain always increases drama, right? So like
Yes,
in any film, when there's a final fight and there's rain in that fight, all of a sudden the drama just goes. you know. So like the fact they had Rain there and they did that, it was just incredible. And I think we sort of glossed over Cody too. Let's not forget that, like,
Oh no,
I
I
mean,
have him on the list. We're going to
uh,
talk about Cody.
okay, because like Cody's last, whatever, 6 to 8 months of work has been just incredible. And it makes me, I would hope that someone like a Tony Khan looks at that and goes, dang, like, I don't know how you don't know what you have until you, but like, I feel like that's just, I don't know. We'll talk about Cody.
Sami Zayn, I mean, he came off of doing something with Johnny Knoxville and Jackass and elevated him to main event against Roman Reigns and then main
Yeah.
eventing WrestleMania, and along with Kevin Owens, being involved with them. I mean, two guys who you never thought would even make it to WWE got to main event WrestleMania. You love to see that. Drew, he's doing some of the best work of his career right now.
It's his best work. It
It,
is
it
easily his
I
best
mean
work.
that whole segment with Punk and Rollins, that was just money television. But yeah, I mean, it all stems from him being upset that the Bloodline screwed him.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
yeah. So we're on what September would be 2 years of that screw job from Clash at the Castle. Everything counts. It all circles back around. And then Cody, I've heard Peter Rosenberg on Cheap Heat say this. Cody, I just like probably the biggest babyface since Hogan. Just continuous cheers. Hogan was cheered by kids, women, grown men. Cena was just cheered by women and kids for a very long time.
Yeah.
Cody's cheered by everybody. Like I've been to a couple shows, man. Like that, he's over like Rover. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Cody is very much like Hogan and like Brett for a while too.
Yes,
Because Brett was cheered by everyone for, I mean, a solid like 4 or 5 straight years. Um, yeah, but Cody, I think, is in their league as far as how he handles himself as a babyface. And the promo he did on Raw, where he touched on all the things he's doing right now, like outside of the ring, how he's gonna be he's gonna be the best man of a stranger's wedding who asked him at a random show. The things he does for the kids, or there was a woman who was blind at a show and he had her come to ringside, and I've met Cody on multiple occasions, and he was doing APW stuff before when he was on the indies. And
we're gonna talk about
dude,
that.
he is such a genuine, straight up guy. I could share stories about him and like everything. I'm because of my inside knowledge. I might see it differently, but I can tell anyone who asks that what you see on screen is not an act. Like Cody is truly, genuinely that kind of a guy. So I guess for me personally, it hits harder when I see him do all that stuff. I'm like, that is him. That just isn't Cody Rhodes the wrestler. That's Cody Rhodes the person. And because those two parallel, it's so easy to just love him as a performer, love him as the character, get behind him. And here's the thing: The Rock is the greatest megastar, probably in wrestling history. I mean, he's overall a bigger megastar than Hogan ever was. I mean, he's untouchable in that sense, right? He's such a megastar that, as heelish as he is, when his music still hits right now, people go ape shit for him. And then eventually he has to do something really drastic to get boos. But for Cody, in all of this, dealing with Rock and still getting cheered as much as he does, dealing with that megastar, it speaks volumes to his work, and
Absolutely.
ability to tell stories with his mouth, really.
So a couple things I just thought of right now. What are your thoughts on them calling Cody a politician? Because that's talk online. Kind of how the way he carries himself. With the suits and the way he speaks. What are your thoughts on that stuff?
When you say calling him a politician, who calling him a politician?
Roman. I mean, they just had the promo segment. Roman's like, "You're a
Uh,
politician." He says the same thing over and over. You guys don't realize that yet.
yeah, yeah. I think Cody is very diplomatic, and that is another. I think that's a softer word for politician. I don't want people to confuse politician with like politicking and like
Yeah.
backhanded like
Yeah.
ways of getting what you want. But I think he is a very diplomatic person as a whole. But I think someone with the character like Cody, you don't see that very often anymore. Like just in day to day life, I think a lot of people are very dog eat dog in the wrestling business,
Yeah.
very selfish. So to see someone so genuine and speaking so Captain America, like so
Yes.
righteous and honest, everyone immediately points to that's not authentic. There's no way someone could be that. And that's fake.
Yeah.
That's just him saying what people want to hear. So it's easy to point that way, but I think with Cody, there are certain people that if you've known them, like people that know Cody. Um, there, there are people that are like that, that are very genuine, and I think they, as a heel, you say what you want to say to try to to damage the baby face, but I don't put much into those comments outside of he's a heel, so he's gonna say something to try to get one's upmanship on the baby face, right? That's an easy, like, I don't know, it's an easy thing to call someone when he's in a position, but I think it's more about how Cody responds and how
Yeah.
that promo he cut on in Chicago was perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, it kind of stems back to like in AEW when he was going after Jericho in the title. People kind of had that vibe, like, oh, he's campaigning for the championship. And which this is another note. When a couple weeks ago on Raw, he told Rock like our locker room doesn't need you, and you're a carny succubus. All things he told Jericho in AEW when he was going after him in that title, and then he lost and couldn't challenge for the title again. So it's kind of everything counts. It's kind of
Yeah.
playing the parallels of that. And then what are your thoughts on The Rock and the cussing? I'm sure you've seen the video.
Love it.
They yell cut,
Love it.
and he's like, "Fuck your script," and I was just like,
So good.
"This is great. This is awesome."
So good. I mean, to me, like WWE has been starving for that for a long time. You go and there's ebbs and flows in your fan base, right? So they went PG. They were trying to basically capture a young audience that they can grow with, because they did that in the 80s, right? They got a young audience. You watch any shows back in the late 80s, early 90s, there's so many kids. And they naturally change and evolve their product as that audience gets older. The All those kids were teenagers and young adults during the Attitude Era. So naturally there would be a time where they shifted back. But I think they've needed to become a little more edgy for a long time. Actually, I think for the last 10 years they could have probably started that, but I get it. It's a different business. They need to keep sponsors happy. Publicly traded company, and they're getting most of their revenue now from TV deals and
Yes.
sponsors, not from ticket sales. So you got to put your priorities straight, and if it means that they have to avoid cussing for whatever the reason might be, they have to continue to do that. The difference now, I think, is with Rock being in the board of directors, he's got a ton of influence, and he's Rock, so I think he has more leeway than other people. And now they already got their TV deals locked in, so they don't have to tiptoe on eggshells until a deal is signed. It's already signed. And I heard, and I don't know if this is true, maybe it's a rumor, but I heard that on Netflix they will be going uncensored.
That's kind of been the thing, and I think that's going to separate the two shows drastically.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Raw will be, and I just joked with a buddy of mine today about this too. The original tagline for Monday Night Raw in 1993 was, it was uncut, uncensored, uncooked,
Oh, this
raw.
is the Manhattan Center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if you remember that or if you watched wrestling. And
I wasn't alive, so
I don't know how old you are. So
I was born in '96.
So the reason why it was called Raw, um, or I guess they played off the word Raw like it was just a very. It's not going to be your typical WWE product of like
Yeah.
sugar. It was raw. So they always would say it's uncut, uncensored, and uncooked
I
hence Raw. So I told him like they're gonna finally go back to that because if they're on Netflix and they're not really censoring anymore, that gives them so much more leeway. Now I will caution that foul language means so much more when it's rarely used.
yes.
Everyone on AEW throws foul language left and right, and it's sort of you're numb to it when you watch their shows. Like it doesn't really mean much, but for whatever reason, I can watch AEW and see a wrestler cut a promo with 3 shits and 2 F-bombs and be like, okay, whatever, decent. And then I watch Raw and see The Rock do what he does and he throws one. And it's like my subconscious goes, I should not have heard that. That was a bigger deal. And it just hit harder because they use it so infrequently. So as long as they're strategic with their foul language, I'm all for it.
Yeah, man, it's been fun to watch. I mean, and the blood, like AEW, somebody bleeds like every week. I mean I
Love
was
it.
kind of advocate like if Cody bleeds at Mania, he's definitely winning the title. That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's been fun, man. So Dave, what inning are we in? This whole bloodline story. Last year WrestleMania, what did Heyman and Roman say? What bottom of the third or whatever? I personally
We're
think
we're we're in the bottom of the ninth, or we're in the top of the ninth of the Cody story.
okay.
The Bloodline story.
I think we're in the middle
I
of the
want to.
sixth.
I was gonna say the seventh.
Okay.
Um, I was gonna say the seventh, but in the way I say it is this WrestleMania would be the seventh inning, or at least the bottom of the seventh, maybe. And I think the eighth inning is going to be the basically the fracturing of the bloodline, where you're going to have Solo. They need to do something with Solo bad because he started out undefeated, but I just saw something that if you include his house show matches and whatnot, he's actually been on an all defeated streak. He's gone like
Yeah.
0 and 38 or something.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing you did was decimate John Cena in Saudi Arabia, and that was it.
Yeah. So I expect Solo to do something drastic in the maybe the night after Raw or night after Mania, or within the next couple of months. Um, they got to build to something big at SummerSlam, and I think the bottom of the ninth would be WrestleMania 41 with Rock and Roman. That's how I see it.
I
The eighth inning will be essentially the summertime.
think the bottom of the ninth is whenever Roman actually loses. Because, like, I mean, we talked about like long title runs. I mentioned at the top of this recording, um, you were UGWA champion for 560 days. Now we all know what wrestling is. It's performance. I mean, tell us. It felt weird when you were no longer the champion. I'm correct, right?
Um, you know, I don't know if it felt weird for me, and I'm sorry if I know you probably wanted me to say yes, it
Oh,
did.
I was just,
uh,
I'm asking. Like,
for me, truly for me, I'm probably in a different situation. It was relief
okay.
to not be champion anymore because I wasn't supposed to win it a second time. There was some scheduling conflicts with other talent, so they put the belt back on me. But it allowed me to tell another story with Jordan, which was cool.
Yes.
Because I don't know if we were going to get that opportunity, but because some other things for other talent didn't work out. Um, but I personally felt that um, I had like sort of everyone has feelers out for how people feel about things. I had feelers that people wanted to see something different in the main event slot, and I didn't want to overstay my welcome in that position.
Okay.
Um, I was hoping other people would get opportunities. So for me, when they finally did when the whole Devil's Night thing, I was just happy to not be in that position anymore because I didn't want to get into a position where people like you get that get off TV heat, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I just like gosh, I had been the champion for so long that I don't want to get that kind of heat where it's like, oh God, he's still the champion and this and that. So for me, it was a little bit different. But I think I know where you're going with that. That it's like, with Roman not having the belt, how weird would that be?
Because like I imagine like how people felt whenever Bruno lost. I mean, the guy had that for like 8 years. You're like, what?
Yeah,
I I can't see him losing this championship. I
so do
can't
you think he's winning then on Sunday?
look, man. I've been an advocate of it, man. Like let's go all the way with this. Let's keep breaking records, man. Like I just can't see him losing this championship. Like I look at
So
how long Roman Reigns has been like the champion. I wasn't old enough to rent a car. Like I look like I'm 28 now. I look at like my life and like kind of like okay, like this is crazy. Like he's been champion for this long, and all these different little milestones and everything I've had in my life, and Roman Reigns has been the champion for so long and whatnot.
the question though is like a story is only as good as the ending. So if you're saying the ending is Roman has to lose or drop the belt to whoever, who is that person and how does that help the company?
I I think
Because
I
it has to, you said it earlier. You said that whoever gets that rub, whoever finally beats Roman, has to be like the guy.
I
So if
think
it's not Cody, who is it?
I think it is Cody. I just see I think Cody and Seth win night one. I'm gonna kind of go into my little predictions here. I think Cody and Seth win night one. It's like
Really?
it's a fair shot, okay. And then in the process of Seth helping out Cody, because remember Roman was like, "How can you trust him? Everything counts. Everything counts." Seth then goes into his match with Drew, gets beaten. Drew's the new world champion, and Seth, he's so irate at it that I think Seth cost Cody the championship
Mm,
because
I see.
we
I don't know how healthy Seth is, but I was under the impression I felt like he was going to take some time off because he was recovering from his knee injury just enough to get through these matches, and I thought he would take some additional time. I expect him to lose, obviously, to Drew.
yeah
Um, and there might be some other. We could talk predictions because there might be some other stuff with the Money in the Bank that come into play there.
I
I
think
thought,
think that's how you do it.
do what?
Cody winning the title, like he wins Money in the Bank, and like I don't know if we can get a Madison Square Garden live event or something, like kind of do it in the place where his dad thought he wanted, and kind of even make it even more poetic or whatever. But I think Money in the Bank is the loophole. Like that's how Cody gets Roman one last time, and wherever they're gonna be.
Mm. Well, you could do it that way. My only thing is what creates a better moment. Because WWE is all about the moment. Like I get it, like the MSG thing with Dusty, but the amount of work they've put in to have Cody do this chase for 2 years to me on the biggest stage and not pay it off there, to me that I don't know. I don't like that story.
I guess I'm also thinking about the
I don't.
after. Like the moment is great, but then what do you do after?
Well, to me, that you do Roman's part time, so beating Roman, he still doesn't. And I assume that however the loss happens, Rock's going to be involved.
Yeah.
So I think they will win night one, Rock and Roman,
Okay.
because the idea going into night two is you have to stack the odds against Cody. Um, at all costs, he is the ultimate underdog. They are essentially telling the Rocky story.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 39, that was Rocky 1.
Okay.
And Apollo Creed beat Rocky in Rocky 1, which was WrestleMania 39. And Rocky comes back and Creed wants a rematch, or I don't know if they went, it was whatever the case may be, they do the rematch. And this is where Rocky finally overcomes the odds and beats the who we all thought was the unbeatable. And I think that's the story they're telling. They're in Philadelphia.
Right.
I,
And
if
then
they don't capitalize and bring in Stallone to do something like a hype video right before the match, it's sort
the
of poetic, and I don't know how they could make that mistake. But the odds need to be against Cody so they can do all the little things in the Bloodline rules and do all those false finishes. And this is where if we're gonna overbook the fuck out of this match, this is where you'd be like, okay, bloodline rules, so that means all the bloodline can interfere. That's why you have Solo and you have Jimmy and Heyman and Rock, all those guys that some way, somehow get involved. But then who are the guys who might help out Cody that are unannounced?
Well, my whole thing is if it's Bloodline rules, then I think only Bloodline would be allowed at ringside, right? Or
Well, I mean, allowed at ringside, sure, but that doesn't mean that someone. So I don't think you could disqualify someone from taking out someone who's not in the match. So if Solo tries to do something and then Cena comes out and fucking nails him,
okay.
that's not going to DQ Cody. And you know, I think that they could take it a couple different ways. I think Rock can make a mistake and cost and Roman,
Okay.
and then you know Roman again is part time, so if he's gonna come back and do something, it probably won't be until SummerSlam anyway.
I
Um,
I think when
and
Roman like loses, he's gone for like just a long time, like maybe a year or something. Like,
what I see something along the lines of Rock accidentally costs Roman or isn't there to help Roman when Roman expects it. Cody wins the match. Um, Roman, whatever, he's gone. And I think at SummerSlam, if Rock's schedule allows it, I think they could do Cody and Rock and have Roman come back at SummerSlam and he cost Rock.
that's a possibility. Yeah.
And then that keeps the belt on the breadwinner who's there every week. And it keeps him strong. And then Cody can go on. Probably Gunther would be his next long-term feud during that string of time. And they can build Cody versus Gunther at Mania 41 and Rock and
Yeah.
Roman.
I mean,
Um,
there's also there's a Money in the Bank briefcase that's still out there. We haven't even
well,
talked.
that's what I was talking about, Money in the Bank for the Seth one. So Seth and Drew, I do think there's a high probability that we can get a Money in the Bank cash in. Um, and I've heard so many different stories about the Money in the Bank too. Have you heard the one about Balor? Um, I don't know if you remember. Balor had two briefcases. They shot a scene on Raw where, and the details matter, right? Where they had the original Money in the Bank briefcase that Damian Priest grabbed. It
Yeah.
was that traditional green and yellow one.
Yeah.
And then Balor had a new one made, the purple one for Priest. And he put in a contract into the new purple one and closed it and gave it to him. So people have been spitballing ideas like, what if Balor put in a fake contract and then kept the real one for himself and kept the old briefcase and did some kind of trickery like that? Not, I
Well,
don't know if that would be legal, but it was an intriguing idea. Um,
I mean, I haven't heard that. That sounds interesting. But I mean,
I, I I can see somehow CM Punk distracting. So if Rollins wins, I think it's almost certain the cash in happens.
but Drew's so hot that he can't lose again.
I don't think he should.
Yeah.
I think he should win. But if Rollins wins, I think he's being cashed on at that moment. And the only way I would think Rollins would win is because Punk is at ringside doing commentary,
Yeah.
and somehow, some way, he gets involved or distracts because that McIntyre Punk feud is money,
Absolutely.
and you know they're gonna pay if Punk is healthy by SummerSlam, they'll pay it off there. I don't know if
Absolutely.
he will be because that's a pretty it's usually like an 8 to 12 month injury
Well, I
for
mean,
Chelsea.
I think the timeline was like 4 to 6 or something. Like it was torn, but it wasn't that severe. So
Okay.
yeah. So
Then
we'll
yeah,
see.
then maybe SummerSlam is a possibility. So
But let's the Cody of it all. I mean, this podcast has followed from his indie run to where he is now. I mean,
yeah.
you've shared the locker room with Cody Rhodes. I mean, I guess we can get some inside baseball here. Like uh, the traits that you saw in Cody Rhodes, then you obviously see now. And just from like you're talking to Cody, I mean, did, back then, did he ever kind of talk about like getting back to this or getting to this point that he is now or anything like that?
No, I think he was just trying to reinvent himself back
Yeah.
then. When he started doing just indie loops and whatnot and working a lot with APW. I think he never really had the independent experience.
Yes.
He went straight to the big leagues. Obviously, I think he had an inside lane because of his dad, right? So he had never really done the indies, and I think he was trying to be an indie guy intentionally. So he was not bigger than anyone else. He made that very clear, like, hey, I'm one of you guys. He shook everyone's hand. He walked up to us. Like he didn't you don't see that very often when you get guys who fly in. They usually are very shy or to themselves in a corner, and if you want to walk up to them, they'll do it. But like the guys who especially have been like to WWE or Impact or AEW, whatever. So he would like walk up to everyone. He always was in a suit and tie, right? And he's say hi, Cody, and you'd introduce him, blah blah. Blah. And he often remembered people, even if like because I shake so many hands, it's hard to remember names of everyone. But he did that, and at APW, like there was a point where APW was doing really big business with Cody.
Yes. I was
Were
there.
you at those shows
I was,
where
yeah.
he main evented with Joey Ryan in the cage and all that?
Yeah, and like I would go to the
Well,
different shows and he'd remember me. That's a credit to like Cody, and like he
he always
remembered
remembered.
and
Yeah,
he
he
always
always.
put in the time.
So he when we were doing those shows with him and whatnot, he like gave all the boys like in a powwow, and I don't know if he gave all of us like his cell number. And he said, if like, here's my number, guys. I just want to say we're all brothers here and this and that. And like, that's the kind of guy he is. He's just a straight up awesome guy. And I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And then I did Dark during COVID.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So it was one of the, eventually everyone was getting opportunities in Dark, but that was like one of the first guys after like Will had been signed
Yeah.
from APW to get an opportunity there. And he looked at me when he's like, gosh, you look familiar. And I'm like, oh, APW. And he's like, you're one of Marcus Mack's guys.
Yes.
And I was like the coolest thing. I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, oh, awesome. Well, I already know you guys are solid. So I look forward to your match and everything. And then, I mean, my match was just like an enhancement match for Starks, right? So I think I had like one flying forearm for my offense, and then I just got beaten like 2 minutes, right? And I go back there, and Tony Khan and Cody like pull me in a gorilla, and they shake my hand and they say, "Hey, you did exactly what we wanted. We wanted him to look really strong. You helped accomplish that. Thank you so much." And a lot of times you feel like you could, and especially I've been in the business long enough to where I feel like I have a good sense of when people are blowing smoke or people that are genuine. And they both felt really genuine. And I knew Cody from before, so I could read him well enough to know he's always genuine. Um, so I mean that's my experience with Cody, and also a cool little fact too. And when one of the APW shows, I went there and brought my family to watch. This is before I got back because I took some time off from wrestling.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
took my kids to watch, and my kid actually caught Cody's shirt, and so I have that on film because someone else recorded it and sent it to me. So I now my son sort of during COVID fell out of love of wrestling, so he's not really into it. He does like Cody and a few other people, but he's not watching it week to week anymore. But he sees Cody now, and then I show him that clip. I'm like, hey, like 5 years ago, he basically held you up and had the shirt, and we went backstage, took photos with them. So he's having a little bit of that starstruck moment of, hey, that guy was down to earth in this, little gym with me and took photos with me and this and that. And so,
I love it.
yeah,
I mean, WrestleMania 40. I love Cody Rhodes. I mean, I've met him on multiple occasions. Class act guy. If he does win, like I'm Bloodline, baby. I'm Roman all the way. But if Cody does win, it'll warm my heart just from watching his career and the guy that went and betted on himself, started a rival company, came back home and became the most over guy in the business.
yeah. Look at
It'll
this right here. Look at this right here.
there it is.
Yeah. So he's just a stand-up dude. He'll all the things you see him do. I know I'm just like putting the guy over like crazy, but I mean, legitimately, all the things you hear him do for people, like he's flying out an entire group of kids that watch wrestling, and it's on like I don't know if you've seen that group. They
Oh
always
yes, the in New
I
York.
forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that isn't just him trying to get like gain clout or anything like that. He does that because he just loves helping people and being a good dude. So I'm all for it. I'm obviously in for the business to do well as a business, but I
Yes.
think the best for business in this case, I think they do need to close that story for Cody. They would if they weren't going to give him the belt. I don't think there was a reason to pivot back from Rock and Roman. To me, they should have just went forward with it and had. And if you're saying, well, we can always circle back to cashing money in the bank at MSG. If that was a better plan, there was no reason for them to pivot. They should have just done what they did and then had him do that anyway. But the fact they switched it back, to me, I think the best plan is to have him do that
Well, let's
and
not forget the
eventually.
backlash that they got.
Well, right, but I mean, if they're willing to pivot because of that backlash, why would they then fuck the fans at WrestleMania? If you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
you're gonna pivot away from your plans to appease them, only to fuck them at the end. That's a Vince move. It's not a Hunter move, in my opinion. But we'll see.
We we
Um,
we will see. I
a
mean,
lot of outcomes to come from both of the main events. So
absolutely. I mean, we haven't. I mean, Monday Night Raw hasn't even happened yet, so maybe that'll change my mind. But I'm Roman still as of right now.
yeah.
That's I think that's gonna do it, man. We've gone on. This has been a fun conversation. Dave, I want to thank you for coming on, man. You're a class act in and of yourself, and you're a legend of the scene, man.
Oh, stop.
Hey,
Well,
man.
I love just to like shoot the breeze and talk shop with wrestling. And I don't get to do it very often. So anytime we can talk on a podcast, super cool. I'm having a good time with doing that. So we can do
Yes.
it again when we run it back.
Absolutely. You guys can catch Dave Dutra at some of your local indies, BTW, UGWA, Pro Wrestling Revolution. Go on YouTube and look up one of my favorite Dave Dutra matches, the APW Garage, Drake Younger ladder match for the APW Internet title.
Oh,
I believe
yeah,
the
that was a
replica is
brutal one.
behind you there, right?
It is, yeah.
Shout out
I
West Ghost.
so yeah, I have everyone has a collection of something. What I typically do is I make replica belts of the belts I've held. So the internet belt is right there. Um, and then I have replicas of pretty much all the belts. I just got, I don't know, the premier heavyweight title is the newest one I got, which is that one.
There we go.
But yeah, got Revolution belts. There's the UGWA belt there. That one has a Battle King emblem. If you could see it at the very top of the strap, it has
Yes,
my
yes.
Battle King skull with a blood. It's basically the logo from my shirt. So,
You love to
but
see,
yeah,
you love to see it. Dave, thank you so much. Let the people know where they can find you.
yeah. So Twitter at Dave Dutra and on Instagram at Battle King Dave Dutra, which is also the same for Facebook. Um, and what's the other one now? Or I should say Twitter. It's X. I got to keep up with the times. So on X, it's at Dave Dutra. Instagram at Battle King Dave Dutra, which is also same for Facebook and Threads. So
Oh,
any of
awesome.
those, you can find me. And then you could
Awesome.
just YouTube my name and look at some stuff like that Drake Younger match, which was almost like 11 years ago, long time.
That was my last time in the garage, that match.
Well, that was the second to last show in the garage.
Oh god, that
Sadly, the show after that was the memorial show for Rowan.
yes.
So there wasn't much more time in that building, but hallowed grounds for ancient NorCal wrestling, the APW garage. Great
Yes,
times.
it's I kind of attribute it to like, how people talk about the ECW arena and how special that building is and was. That's kind of what the garage was for NorCal, I feel like in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's can't argue with that. So
All right. Thank you, Dave, so much. Guys, you know where to find the Bullet Cast. Go home episode is coming out in a couple days. We are fast on the road to WrestleMania. I will be in Philadelphia, so we're Mr. Dutra. hopefully we get to bump into each other, maybe have a cheesesteak or two.
Yeah, we'll link up. Just message me. After this, I'll hit you up. We'll exchange numbers so we don't have to use Twitter.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave.
X. All right. Peace.
Know your role and shut your mouth. The Rock's laying the smackdown.